Unless I'm missing something here. Let's see, Carrie Olson. It looks like we have one alternate and 2 positions open. I don't see Jeff or Nord on. And I don't hear them raising their hand or screaming. So, Doug, we're going to sit you for Nord.
Jeff,
Okay.
This is Jeff Schillinger. I'm on.
Oh, you are on, Jeff. Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see me.
No, I didn't hear. Are you 741?
I am 418.
Okay, now I see your iPhone coming up here.
Yep.
Okay, so, but Doug for Nord still holds. Okay, so at 7:04, we'll open the meeting for the Ashford Planning and Zoning Commission, 12/14, Monday, 12/14/2020. We did seating of alternates. Doug for Nord Yakoff. And next item is the review of the minutes from November 9th. Any comments regarding the minutes from November 9th?
This is Janet. I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'd like to comment that they were the longest minutes I've ever seen of a P&Z meeting.
Maybe that's why Valerie's not here. Maybe she cramped up in the carpal tunnel or something. Janet has offered up a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it. There are some minor issues that are not totally correct, but they're not enough to affect it.
Okay, so a guarded second by Richard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? So moved. That is 8-0. Alex, are you going to be trying to keep minutes on this as I run the meeting?
I'm gonna try.
Okay, I'll try and keep some notes too and capture what I can. Maybe we'll do half as well as Valerie did the last time.
Jeff, I can send the recording to Valerie as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
We have that as well.
Oh, this
Jeff,
newfangled stuff.
I would also ask the people that are on this call that are not members of the Planning and Zoning Commission to identify themselves.
Okay, I'm Loretta Roble. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Thank you, Loretta.
I'm
Go ahead.
Erwin Krieger. I live in Ashford, up at Lake Chaffee.
Tony
Paticchio.
Tony.
We are Bobby and Tony from Lakeview Drive in Ashford, Lake Chaffee.
Hi, I'm Tom Barry. Tom Barry from Ashford Lake Property Owners Association.
I'm Marion Vitale and Len Kimmer. We live on Ashford, in Ashford on Lake Chaffee.
Susan Eastwood, chair of the Clean Energy Task Force, Waterfall Road.
Christina Sebo, resident of Ashford. I'm on the Conservation Commission.
Mike Panic, president of the LCIA, Lake Chaffee, also a resident and a homeowner.
Paul Varga, Ashford resident.
Seth and Blythe Kaufman. We have a home on Amadon Drive on Lake Chaffee.
Anyone else besides those that are represented by folks that have a application before us or anything like that? Okay, thank you very much. Thank all the guests for identifying themselves. It makes it much easier to.
There's someone that's identified as administrator's iPhone.
Yes, Steve Rodolakis for Ashford Realty Trust.
He's the applicant for the amendment changes.
Okay.
Okay, there goes my computer going away. Hold on one second.
Hey, Jeff,
Yes,
can you just text me Valerie's phone number and I'll try calling her?
I'm sorry, I really can't. I don't have everything available to me and my phone's not
I
charged.
don't have mine in front of me. Okay.
I'm only running like 6 pieces of equipment here right now, plus cooking dinner. 208.
I've already finished my chicken soup for the night, so I'm protected against COVID by chicken soup.
Oh, okay.
Wear a
Couldn't wait
mask.
Couldn't wait for the vaccine. Okay, public comments. We're at, again, these are public comments, not necessarily geared toward the hearing or anything like that, but does anyone have a public comment regarding planning and zoning? Okay. Moving on to bills. Alex, any bills to present?
No, I have no bills.
No bills? Okay.
I have something quick on that. So we actually do have bills that I've been working with. The Chronicle has been billing all of the legal notices together and not separating out planning and zoning and ZBA. So I've been having to go through them and figure out what commission has what bill. Because I noticed that our bill that came in for the advertisement for this public hearing that we currently have was high. And so I've been going through them and trying to separate them out, and I'm working with them on that. But I didn't know if the commission would consider moving forward for bills that we get, particularly while the town hall is closed. It may not be within the time frame to pay the bill, enough time for me to get it to you guys. And so whether it be okay that I work with Jeff or something, but some of these bills come due and we don't have a meeting for us to get them here. And because the town hall's closed, Alex can't get in to get them himself. But once we get these advertisements squared away and they give me an adjusted invoice, I'd like to get it paid.
We don't do any type of motion or movement by the commission anyway. So if you just want to present them to myself or Alex for that, Mike, to get them moving, I think that's fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, Mike, in the past, several of the notices have gone out in the Citizen, and that was deemed to be acceptable, and that avoided the expense of going to the Chronicle. So you might want to talk to Sherry Much about doing that.
It doesn't always work with our time frames, and so I keep it with the Chronicle because I want to make sure that all of our notices run in the same paper, rather than decisions going in one and legal notices going in another, because of how far out they need to know. I have looked at that, but yeah, I just need them to bill us for the right commission's work, and then we'd be all set.
Yeah, putting it into the Citizen is a luxury if we can hit that time frame, because there's a cutoff of the 19th, and what we have going on for hearings or people presenting and needing to give them a hearing based on our meeting might not fall into the proper time frames, as Mike said. But yeah, we do our best to try and get any free advertising we can on there. Regarding correspondence, most of the correspondence I've received has to do with the public hearing part. So we'll hold that till we go into the public hearing and move forward with that. And to that end, Alex, no other correspondence that you're aware of?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All right, so we will move into the continuation of the public hearing from the November 9th meeting regarding the text amendment application of representing the applicant is Gregory McCracken of Article 4, Sections 3 and 4, and again, continued from the November 9th meeting. So Many of you were on that at the beginning of that hearing before, and thank you for attending this again. I guess part of our continuation had to do with looking at a few items. I know we have gotten some input on some of these. I'll open it up to Mr. McCracken, Mr. Rodolowski, if you have any opening comments or anything you want to say, that there are any changes that have gone on since your last appearance before us.
Yeah, thank you. Again, for the record, Greg McCracken, representing Ashford Real Estate Trust. We do have Steve Rodolakis here tonight, as well as Bob Motley, real estate professional, and two design professionals, Kurt Prostrina and Rob Newton. Because of the difficulty in trying to conceptualize what the text amendment might allow by way of development, we thought it might be helpful to present a site layout and a couple renderings of what could be done if the text amendment were to pass and an applicant were to seek approval of a site plan and a special permit. These are not actual projects that are proposed. It's just to try to lay some concrete and provide something visual of what could happen if the text amendment were to get approved. So I'll offer those in a minute after Mike and I coordinate sharing the screen to try to put these things up, and I'll make sure he has JPEGs or PDFs for the record. Beyond that, we'll ask Bob Motley to lay out the likely effect on property values of development if this text amendment were to be approved. And then the design professionals are going to address issues that came up of fire protection and suppression, environmental issues in terms of wetlands and water courses, and stormwater and how it would be handled to protect the wetlands and water courses around the area that would be zoned this way. So just to get started, I wanted to try to put up the site rendering of what a building of about the size that could be approved would look like on the applicant's land. So, Mike, how should we go about this for sharing the screen?
You should be able to do it.
Okay, let's see if I can bring this up.
When you click that share button, it should allow you to share a window or a
Yep.
or screen if you have more than one.
Okay, this, I hope it came up. I can see it in my own thing, but it's a site rendering of...
You don't have it yet, Greg.
Don't have it yet? Let me go back to this and try it again. It looks like I've got a pick.
Yeah, you have to pick.
Okay, here we go. Now can you see it?
Yep.
Coming up. Yep.
Okay, this is a rendering that was prepared just to show what a building of the approximate size that's being proposed at the maximum 750,000 square feet would look like on the site. It's the X part here, and then the part around it would be impervious surface for basically dock access and parking and driveways and that kind of thing. And the one over to the right is the same thing, but with the topography showing. Certainly the design professionals or Steve could comment further, but this is just to give an idea of what a building of the maximum size would look like if it were laid onto the site. So just in the effort to try to make this a little bit more tangible. Steve or anybody from design professionals, do you have any comments you'd want to add?
Again, I don't have a user. This is just illustrative of what potentially could be laid out on the site. It could be smaller.
What is the approximate coverage percentage of that parcel that this would represent?
Impervious?
No, the coverage percentage would be the building plus the impervious on the total acreage of the site.
I'm guessing about 30%, 35%.
The reason I ask that is that I've looked at least a dozen or more land use regulations of surrounding towns, and I've yet to find any regulation based upon the size of the structure. Most of them are associated with the percentage of the building plus impervious of the total parcel.
Right. But again, we're working from the existing regulations, which do have building sizes specified, and we're just adding an extra tier to it. And I also wanted to note that the 60% maximum impervious coverage is what's already in the regulations. We're not changing that. I just reproduced a column to hopefully simplify the text amendment for readability.
It's a 93-acre site.
Excuse me. And this is only on the one parcel that you own. Nothing affected the other parcels that you own in that same area?
That's correct. The other, sorry about my dog. The other parcel is across the street, across the Ashford Motel Road, and the other parcels are in the town of Union.
I have a question that I asked last week and I didn't get an answer. Of this 93 acres or 97 acres, how much of that is in Ashford?
All of it.
All of it. Okay.
I think what Mr. Rodolsky had mentioned last time, Jerry, was that he owned other acreage in going into other towns that are different from this parcel.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't clear where the. Of course, I can't see your the map that he has right now because I'm on my phone.
Okay.
But
okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and we also wanted to provide some renderings of what the building itself could look like. So now I need to figure out how to get onto the next image. But let's see. And there we go. Hopefully this comes up. Okay, this is a rendering of what the building could look like from the corner where the entrance is, with the pavement around it and just the general layout of the site. Again, no concrete specific proposal at this point to do this particular thing, but this is an example of what it potentially could look like if it went through the special permit process and were to be approved. Steve, if you have any other comments, or if the designers do, that would be great.
And Greg, this would be basically not seen from 89 or anywhere near the exit. You would have to drive down Ashford Motel Road and then drive into this site.
I believe so, but Steve, can you clarify or confirm that?
Yeah, really, there's a, Steve Rodolake is the applicant. There is a fairly large pie-shaped parcel that comes down, which is in Union, that abuts my parcel, but really that pie-shaped parcel is the Connecticut State Forest, and it's owned by, it's owned by the state of Connecticut, and that is actually at the junction of Route 89 and Ashford Motel Road. So, that is truly no cut, no build, and I don't see how you would see this except for maybe the highway.
Are you familiar with the FedEx facility in Wellington?
At exit 71, I am, yes.
So this would be kind of protected from the view like that is now?
I would say so. It'd be a better looking facility than the FedEx facility. More aesthetically pleasing, but I don't think it would be visible except to maybe some people driving on Route 84.
Okay, and there's a second one too of a different perspective on the building that I'm going to try to pull up also. So give me just a moment. And let's see if I can switch this.
I have a question about the impervious surface. This is Janet Bellamy. If this was a large warehouse facility, wouldn't there be need for large parking areas for trucks? Or does this provide that? I don't.
It provides the docks, a passage lane around the entire building, as well as trailer storage opposite the docks.
Okay, thank you.
And this next picture is the docks and some of what Steve was talking about on the access and the parking. Okay, if no more questions on that, I think we can turn to Bob Motley's presentation on property values, which I think will be useful.
No sound, Mr. Motley.
See, I see him, he's not muted.
Lost. Is he still on, Mike?
Yep, he's muted now. But when he was unmuted before, there was no sound to the mic.
Yeah. Could have been speakers, could have been volume on his side.
If you have multiple microphones options on your computer, you may have to adjust those. Cannot hear you now. The bottom left-hand corner where you can mute, there's a little arrow. If you click that, it will ask you to select a microphone. If you have multiple, you may have to toggle between those. I lost him. I don't see him anymore.
See him, but I do see him on the still as a participant. Is there anything, in case he does come back to us, or we do get a chance to hear him, his audio is fixed. Is there anything that you can share from that, Mr. McCracken?
You know, he really had the details, but
okay.
I think it would be better. Maybe we can go on to the design professionals next and cover fire, stormwater, and environmental issues. And
that would be fine.
Give Bob a chance to try to get his microphone to work because it's still not. So, Kurt, do you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
just one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to let Valerie know, our recording secretary, that Valerie, anything that you're not catching, Mike will be able to send you the recording of it, and you'll be able to use that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Go right ahead, sir.
No problem. Kurt Procharena from BSC Group, 655 Windingbrook Drive, Glastonbury, Connecticut. Good evening, everybody. So I'll start with traffic. Because the site is located on a state highway, Route 89, any development, and again, there is no development currently proposed, but any development proposed for the site would need to go through the Connecticut Department of Transportation review process. one of the things that's very beneficial about this site is its proximity to the interchange. So unlike some other sites where they're remote from a highway, this site is only, where Ashford Motel Road is, only about 600 feet from the intersection. So because the state highway system is designed for very high capacity movement of vehicles, this site represents one of those situations where traffic issues, movement of traffic is actually going to be fairly easy to deal with. It's most likely that there would be some minor improvements to the roadway infrastructure proximal to the site, potentially adding of some turn lanes and those kinds of things. But those are very standard approaches to site development work. And those are really intended to maintain unhindered flow of traffic in and out of the site and to the on-ramps, off-ramps of the highway. There was a question about screening, which we kind of talked about a little bit. And just to reiterate, the site by its nature is really screened on three sides, as Steve had alluded to before. On the west side, because of the topography, the building will actually be below the land surface. And then because of the heavy wooded nature of the land around it, it would be remote from Route 89. It certainly would be visible from I-84, but additionally, there is a fair amount of vegetation between I-84 and the site, so it wouldn't necessarily be glaring, right along the highway, but it certainly would be visible, as many similar developments are along the I-84 corridor. As far as noise, really the greatest generation of noise in these cases tends to be vehicular. Again, without knowing what the site development is, right now we're assuming some sort of warehouse type use. But vehicular noise would be the predominant source of noise. But again, the proximity to the highway means that it's an extremely short trip for any vehicle exiting or entering the facility, which is absolutely beneficial. Another benefit, which will help reduce the migration of noise from the site, is the fact that it's heavily wooded around the site. And typically for developments like this, we'll want to maintain as much of that vegetation and that wooded forested land as possible, because it does serve very well to attenuate noise. And then I'll turn it over to Rob to talk about some of the other items.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Rob Newton, also with BSC Group. One of the two items that I would like to really touch base on, kind of mentioned it previously, is fire suppression. So it can be a challenge for a building this size in this location, but not uncomfortable. It's what we can do is add storage tanks, well-fed storage tanks to provide fire suppression water. They'll be turned over periodically through the well process. These tanks, what we've seen in the past is either underground tanks out of the way and hidden, or in this location, it very well could be an elevated tank and taking advantage of some of the topography surrounding the site. So that's one way that we could bring water to the site and ensure that there's enough water for the fire suppression system. And finally, getting into the stormwater. As we know, that we don't have a design yet, and we don't know the exact size of a building or a project. But really what it comes down to is managing the water, managing peak runoff flow rates, managing volumes, managing water quality. And with those things, they can all be done with following the Connecticut DEEP guidelines for low impact development, following Connecticut DOT guidelines for managing of stormwater, and local regulations. So that can be done through a series of underground or above ground detention systems where we can actually hold back the water, let any sediments settle out using a variety of both natural systems as well as mechanical systems to help remove sediments. We can in a situation like this, we can have long grass-lined swales, which will help filter the stormwater, help reduce the pollutants, help reduce the temperature of the water, and really collect it, manage it, and then discharge it to surrounding drainage systems. So there's a lot of guidance that we can rely upon to really manage the stormwater, so there is no impact offsite from a high volume of water or a pollutant load carried in that water. And all of this would help benefit. There's wetlands on the site, and we can manage all that stormwater prior to it entering the wetland system.
Going back to your comment about the fire suppression, in a building as large as that, and I'm not a fire expert, but I did consult with some folks that are. They indicated that simply using water to suppress a fire would be rather difficult. So would you consider other means to suppress a fire, built into the building?
Certainly, and as a civil engineer, I'm not really, I don't really know all the fire suppression systems that could be involved in a system in a building like this. But yes, there certainly could be systems built into the building so it would not rely solely on water for fire suppression.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. And again, I know the folks presenting have made this clear, but I want to make it clear to the commission also that there is currently no site application in front of us. I appreciate the fact that they've tried to show us what a hypothetical situation might be, what the considerations, some of the considerations that we brought up previously, how that would affect or be affected by such a proposal being presented to the commission. So again, just a reminder on that. Anything else, Gregory?
Yeah, let's see if we can get Bob Motley up again. Hopefully the microphone issue was resolved and he can cover the effect on property values. Bob, are you there and available?
Can people hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Fabulous. I apologize. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bob Motley. I work for a global real estate concern called Cushman & Wakefield. I've been a commercial real estate practitioner for over 30 years. I live in Woodstock, Connecticut. I've been here for 22 years. Every morning and every evening, I drive through Ashford, and I've seen all of the great improvements that have been done over the past several years, and it's very exciting. I have been involved with Mr. Rotalakis on this project for over 12 years. In terms of my responsibilities have been marketing the property, and I thought I would just quickly walk you through some of the uses and people we've spoken to. We have had serious conversations with operators of wind farms, racetracks, water parks, truck stops, truck repair facilities, farming operations, and convenience stores. So we've spoken to a lot of people over the past 12 years. Excuse me. When I look at this project from a macro level, few things come to mind is the number of temporary construction jobs. There'll be many of them. These people need to patronize local restaurants, convenience stores, gas stations, things of that nature. From the town's perspective, there will be permitting fees that will be directed to the to the town treasury as a result of an application like this. And then there's permanent jobs. These are jobs that can be managerial jobs down to people loading boxes. And sort of at a minimum, these jobs pay anywhere between $17 and $19 an hour. And then from there on up, you've got managers and such. And those jobs they pay more money. A project of this size, which again, there's no project pending, could theoretically end up being the largest taxpayer in the town. Some of the benefits of that I've experienced with projects like this is you're potentially able to reduce your mill rate, which is always a positive thing. You may be able to increase services that you provide to the town. And by improving services to the citizens of the town, that generally is viewed as a positive thing. And it should lead to some improved property values. We've seen that as well. Additionally, this is what we refer to as a true clover leaf. You can access the site literally within seconds once you exit the highway. There's a possibility that additional spin-off business could occur, whether that be smaller businesses, warehousing businesses, convenience stores, gas stations, things like that. And again, they would be in immediate proximity to the Cloverleaf interchange. And there's a possibility as well that as these companies move in and the employees move in, that the area can be to some degree discovered. And again, the value to residential property owners could be positive. In conclusion, we have worked really hard over the past 12 years, trying to find the right type of user that is not going to create congestion on the back roads, that is not going to create smoke and noxious smells. And that's really about it. I think it would be a great project for the town in an area that will have minimal impact to the residents.
This is
Thank
Dick
you.
Williams. We had a application a couple of years back for a waste processing facility at exit 72, not on your land. And in looking at that, it could have generated significant traffic on 89 going by Lake Chaffee to the facility. Because a lot of the waste would be coming from Northeast Connecticut. So one of the things we would look at very carefully is what kind of traffic would be encumbered on the local roads. So is that something, as you've looked at the potential customers that you're trying to serve, that they would strictly be on and off 84 and not on and off 89?
This is Bob Motley speaking. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I'm highly confident that the vehicular traffic would be coming from 84. The types of vehicles that would come to this facility would not be able to travel on 89. I've traveled on 89, and there's some really tight corners, hairpin corners, and they would not travel those roads.
Steve
And this
Rodolake
Kirk
is for the
Porcelana from
applicant.
BSC. I'll just chime in also. If you look at the nature of the facility and the infrastructure available being I-84, the interstate highway system is an ideal mechanism for the type of vehicles that would use this facility. There wouldn't even be a desire for these vehicles to access 89 or 190 because the highway is right there. The highway represents the ideal piece of infrastructure for most uses for this site. Therefore, they wouldn't want to use 89 or 190.
Was that
Steve-
Mr. Dufresne?
No, that was Mr., I'm sorry, Kurt, your last name is?
Yeah, that was Kurt Koch-Renner from BSC.
Oh,
Kurt
okay.
Renner. Thank you.
Steve Rodolakis for Ashford Realty. Again, any use that we're looking for here would only be allowable by special permit in the context of these text changes. None of these are as of right uses. So the commission could condition or, encourage within its decision that all truck traffic be limited to using Route 84.
You're saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez, you were saying that by making this a special permit? Is that what you said?
No, I said I think all uses within the II2 zone are by special permit. So this warehouse distribution use as well would only be allowable by a special permit from your board.
Right.
So this commission could condition any application that came up as to how the tractor trailers or other commercial vehicles that would use the facility would be restricted to the use of 84.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Mr. McCracken, anything else from your side?
I wanted to offer, at least at the outset, if the commission has any other questions or if anything comes up from the public portion that requires a response, I would offer it then. But for now, that's what I wanted to lead off with.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for the information.
Jeff, I'm not sure if this is appropriate in the public hearing or in our own meeting, but I've spent quite a bit of time going through the regulations in surrounding towns, approximately a dozen or more. As I told Mike, and I know it's in our existing ones, I found no town regulating the size of the buildings. They regulate primarily the coverage of the size of the lot. I found by and large most industrial, warehouse, commercial permit 45-foot heights. 35-foot is pretty much reserved for residential. In towns where there's the potential for a hotel, the heights go up to 60 feet and higher for a hotel. So the 45-foot issue is not out of the ordinary for what is done in surrounding towns.
Okay, thank you, Dick. Would anyone like to volunteer from the public? Any input? I know we did receive a couple of correspondence from people. And again, as opposed to reading those have been shared mostly with the commission and they have been part of the record for accessing. Would anyone like to speak at this point? Otherwise, I'll just call on you. I'll go with Christine first.
Yes, hi. I submitted a letter in response to the presentation of November 9th about this issue. And some of the issues that I noted and talked about still remain for me. So the first thing I want to address is the watershed issues. So this property is actually not on the Mount Hope watershed. It's actually on the Fenton River watershed region. And I assume that the wetlands are Fenton River wetlands. So the Fenton River flows to the Willimantic Reservoir on the way providing water for the University of Connecticut. So as neighbors of Willimantic and Mansfield, it would be a shame if we degraded the water that's important for them. Across the highway is Maury Pond and the associated wetlands. Is someone trying to talk? Okay. The Mount Hope River headlands. So that the Mount Hope River runs right along 89. And I'll talk about traffic in one of the next comments. And this waterway has also already been compromised by agriculture and other sources of pollutants, including runoff from I-84 and Route 89. So increasing pollution from any trucks or lots of vehicles that go down 89 would be detrimental to this watershed. They also mentioned last week that there's a dark corner, and so that is something that they think is a positive to mitigate. We like dark corners, and any of these extremely big buildings with freight and warehouse facilities would likely be lit 24 hours a day. They say that it's across from the state forest, so anyone in the state forest at night would see the lights. Now, there won't be many people at night unless people want to go out and stargaze up there, which some of us like to do that. Anyway, dark is good. My second issue is, I'll skip the vision of Amazon distribution warehouse, which I think is not a vision, but a nightmare. Okay, one of the things they talked about last time and again stressed this time is that the impact on the town, center of town and farther south, and the town roads won't be great, and the traffic will be more confined to the interstate. So there'll be minimum impact on farmland, forests, and residential processes. But at the same time, both last time and this time, they've noted that activity begets activity, and that large scale operation at this facility would likely have benefits in terms of more commercial activity that would support Ashford. The workers would have to go to Ashford for whatever reasons, food, restaurants, whatever. That would have to be more traffic on 89. You know, in order to get to Ashford, you're not going to be going down to Route 74 and then coming up again. You're not going to be going down to 195 and coming over. You're going to be going down 89. That goes along the Mount Hope River, but it's also a residential area. So I failed to see that there wouldn't be a lot more traffic on 89. Secondly, they say that truck drivers aren't going to be using 89 with their big rigs, whatever. I don't know, with smaller rigs maybe. Why wouldn't a truck driver with freight bound for Providence or even Norwich or New London take the shortcut down 89 to 44? Why would they go all the way around? And in terms of saying that they can't do that, we can't even keep major big rigs out of the third passing lane on I-84. There's no apparent supervision of that these days. So the idea of being able to stop trucks from going down 89 seems a little silly. Where would the other commercial activity that this project might engender occur? Again, is that supposed to be them coming down 89 to go to Ashford Center? Or I don't know, the thing I can imagine is that some of that activity would be people leaving their homes on 89 because they can't stand all the traffic. In order to give more support to those workers in terms of food or groceries, whatever, they'd have to be closer. If it were going to support Ashford, that means in Ashford. It doesn't mean along the highway somewhere else. Are we going to make 89 into a commercial strip to have these facilities to support those workers? Again, I don't get it. So property values, I'm not sure what property values would increase. I guess people along 89 could sell their residences to, and we could ask for commercial zoning to make more convenience stores or whatever. The applicant has repeatedly stressed that if the amendment were passed, the town could always decide not to approve something in the future, even if it required with the amendment specifications. While that's true, including this amendment would be tantamount to the town saying that this scale of activity is what the town would accept, potentially, and indeed welcome at this site. It would open a door without the kind of careful consideration that was given to drawing up the original regulations. And I think we all know it's hard to close doors that have been opened. Finally, the applicant notes that he has had interest from potential users, but their desired uses were not sufficient for the resources this site offers. I think it's clear that the site is a valuable, in a valuable geographic location. And I think we also can assume that eventually someone will want to develop it for commercial use. That's why it's designated as what it is now. I think the commission should decline to approve this amendment, assuming that at some point the kind of development we want to happen at that site will be proposed. We all know this part of Connecticut is growing, maybe even a little faster than we want. Our section of I-84 is almost always full of traffic now, and further development most certainly will find us. Now, the existing regulations without the amendment would accommodate the size and kind of development the town decided it wanted to use when we wrote them. That this more modest use might not yield the very large return on investment that the owner envisions shouldn't be the concern of the commission. I think I just want to highlight one more thing from today about water runoff from the site. As they noted, there are wetlands associated with that property. And I don't know if anybody read recently, there's kind of some new information that there's a chemical in tires that kills fish. It has been a large source of salmon kill. And it's a chemical found in tires. So now we would have all these trucks with many, many, many tires flowing onto that property and the runoff flowing into wetlands. And then that goes downstream to Mansfield and Willimantic. So those are some of my issues. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's what the town people really want. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for that. Yes, and I should have prefaced, Loretta, you'll be going next. And I just asked that, and I should have prefaced this early on, that if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, just so we can get everyone in, I'd appreciate it. But Christine, thank you for your comments and covering the letter that you shared with us. Loretta Robles, yes. Do we have you on mic?
Wait,
there we go. You're good.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to call people's attention to the very wonderful assessment that Jean Pillow from ECCD, who's a water specialist of sorts. I had contacted her and asked her to do assessment of this area simply because of the concern that we had about all of the water in that area. And it turns out that it's the headwaters of two streams that are important to us. And the Fenton, which it ends up being in the Fenton River, makes it even more important because the Fenton also is part of a cold water trout stream. And that is a very sensitive stream to that any temperature change can affect the trouts. And that's something that's controlled by DEEP. So she gave a pretty exhaustive amount, which I think you all had, so you can look at that and refer to that when you're making your decision, but also to understand how much fragile water there is around here. And one of the things that we tried to do, and we were making recommendations for this area, is we wanted some sort of development, knowing that it's right next to the highway, but also we wanted to be really sensitive to the high conservation value of this area. And it is extremely important, not only for us and not only for those rivers and waterways and wetlands, but also downstream. And there's also, because of the nature of the land, there's also a lot of issues and problems when you start putting in a lot of impervious surfaces, because that's going to, as Christine mentioned, it's going to run into the waterways and add more pollutants. So I think it's important before you make your decision to really look and carefully browse through what Jean put a lot of effort into planning, and also to understand that one of the things as a community is we're a rural community. We really value our natural resources, and what we're interested in having is a business in there that will really resonate with who we are. And yeah, maybe that means that it won't earn a lot of income, but it will certainly help keep our town the way it is. Okay, thank you very much.
Greta, thank you for that. And yes, the commission has been copied on the report from Jean Pill with the Eastern, excuse me, to the top here, the Eastern Connecticut Conservation District. And I think Mike Panic, you were next. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Can I be heard?
Absolutely.
I didn't know if the mic was on. Not a Zoom participant all that often. I wear two hats coming to this meeting. One, as the president of the LCIA, the Lake Chaffee Improvement Association. I did submit a letter this morning through Mr. D'Amato that he had responded to, and said that he had emailed it to all of the chair people. I just wanted to make sure that you all got that. It was in reference to how this meeting developed, how it started, its publication in reference to these terrible times that we're in with COVID, and how it's presented, the public portion of it, you know, how you were making people aware of it. And I think that it was not done in accordance with, you know, the rules and regulations that the governor has put into place. And I just want to be sure that everybody has read the letter. And if they haven't, I'd be happy to read it very quickly into the minutes.
Excuse me one second, Mr. Panic. Mike, I know you sent it out. Did you send that out to all the commission members or just to myself?
No, it was too close. So I copied you, but it was too close to the meeting. I wouldn't have been able to confirm that everybody would have got it.
Okay, Mr. Panic, were you able to gain the response back from our zoning enforcement officer?
I did, and I have a response to that, again, because of the time constraints, which led to the entire letter of, you know, this meeting being held under pretenses that I don't think followed the current guidelines of the state of Connecticut. You know, I do have a response to his letter today. And I'll just read it really quickly. I write on behalf of Lake Chaffee Association and its members to object to any action being taken on the part of the application by Greg McCracken for text change amendment, apparently filed on or about September 22nd. The LCIA recently learned that the public hearing had commenced on this application and has been continued to the commission's next meeting, which we're all at currently. The LCIA objects to any action being taken on the application because of insufficient notice was provided to the public in advance of the commencement of the public hearing, as required under General Statutes 8-3 and 8-7D, and specifically is modified by the Governor of Lamont's Executive Orders number 7B and 7I. As you know, the Ashford Town Hall has been closed to the public since mid-March. In recognition of the need to secure public health and safety, the government and the governor, in conjunction with the Freedom of Information Commission, devised a way to avoid in-person meetings while allowing remote notice and participation to the public in accordance with the open meeting requirements. To that end, this commission was required to post a notice of the public hearing on the website in accordance with all publications of notice requirements, and all material to be considered for the application were to be posted on the website no less than 24 hours prior to the commencement. Now, specifically tonight, the applicant has supplied all kinds of information that the public is kind of getting blindsided with tonight, including sketches of buildings and pictures of buildings that aren't even in our town. It's interesting that the buildings that he submitted pictures of have lots of garage doors, but don't show one tractor trailer. You know, again, I wear a little bit of a hat of a resident as well, and you may be able to tell that I'm opposed to this application. But as the hearing went forward without proper notice and without the ability for timely review of the application materials, the LCIA and the public in general were deprived of the opportunity to file a timely petition against pursuant to the General Statute 8.3B, and 2, to participate in any meaningful way in the public hearing process. Moreover, the failure of the proper notice of the posting of the public hearing notices and materials on this application on the website is a fatal flaw that cannot be corrected at this juncture. For the foregoing reasons, the application should be withdrawn and resubmitted with ample opportunity for the public to review all submissions with the proper published notice to the public in advance of any new public hearings. Now, I did get a reply, like I said, from Mr. D'Amato to that, and I highly disagree with his assessment of how this was handled. And I think if looked at a little closer by the committee, you'll see that the guidelines weren't followed for the public hearing portion of this meeting. And I wear those feelings from the board of Lake Chaffee, and I do notice that there are several people on this call tonight from the Lake Chaffee neighborhood. And as the president of the association, I feel obligated to make sure that not only the public, but the 244 members of Lake Chaffee are represented here tonight. I will say that switching hats really quickly and maybe taking up my second 3 minutes as a citizen of Ashford, some of the things that I heard on the meeting from last month, which I took the time to listen to 2 hours and 45 minutes on YouTube, which is where it's posted. I noted a lot of things that were said, and it's not specific to any specific application. It's only a text change. It's only a text change. Yet we have drawings, we have submittals, we have all kinds of stuff when all we're doing is changing the text. And it keeps reverberating and reverberating that there's nothing on the table. Well, surprise. And we're going to change the regulations now after, I believe, Mr. Petitio, who wrote a very nice letter a month ago, with his views, was on the board when these changes were made back in the day. And he stated in his 3-page letter that they took great lengths to thinking about all of the things that are being discussed the last 2 months on this call, and that a lot of thought was put into it at the time. And to just blanketly change it now, just to me, makes no sense. And one last thing I'd like to say is that we keep talking about exit 72 and exit 71 and the FedEx truck stop. Well, I ask all of the members of the commission to take a look on the Google map of Day Hill Road in Windsor. That's Day Hill Road in Windsor. At Day Hill Road, they approved a while back 750,000 square foot facility for Amazon called Building 1. On that Google, if you do a Google search, you'll notice there's 120 loading dock doors, and they have 260 trailers on site at all times. That was followed up by Building 2, which has 100 loading dock doors and 300 trailers on site at all times. That building is 980,000 square feet. And finally, on Day Hill Road, those two are Amazon buildings. And the third building is a warehouse for Home Goods, which is a large retailer. Okay, that one has 250 loading doors with 600 trailers on site for a total of over 1,100 trailers on the Day Hill Road exit of Route 91, which is halfway between Hartford and the Massachusetts line, approximately the same distance from Hartford to the Massachusetts line on 84, where this not proposed, but maybe proposed, could happen if we make changes. And I just don't think that living in Ashford, even though I live there part-time, are going to be led to believe by anybody or any expert. And I respect all the experts. I'm in the commercial real estate business. I know the commercial real estate business very well, but you're not going to tell me that there's going to be 1,200 tractor trailers parked at a couple of buildings at our exit that aren't going to go down Route 89 to get gas or go to, get something to eat or, things like that. And when they talk about, ancillary business, coming to the neighborhood, the ancillary business is going to be these second and third buildings of the same size. We're going to end up with 3 or 4 of these things. And it's just not going to be good for Ashford, because we're not going to get things that Ashford benefits. We're going to get things that benefit the applicant. And are we here as citizens and the board to benefit the applicant? Or are we here to protect the gateway and the only exit that gets you to town and to Lake Chafee, where I represent 244 homeowners. I just don't see that this is a good proposal from an Ashford resident standpoint. And I don't want to forget the letter that I wrote and the response I got, as opposed to this meeting even being legal. And there's much more to it, but I'm going to divert to some of the other residents to give their issues. But I highly, highly, highly think this is a bad decision to change text parts of the application after Mr. Pachicchio and other members that I don't know spent a lot of time and a lot of effort years ago to make sure that we got what Ashford wants in these areas. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Panic. I would just like to respond to just a couple of things. One is that, again, as our the applicant and the professionals as he brought in, many of those were brought in at the behest of the, if you will, the questions given out by the commission members at the last meeting in the 2 hours and 45 minutes that you viewed on YouTube. Many of these items had to do with a number of things that were brought up, and as opposed to taking, nothing personal, Mr. McCracken, taking Mr. McCracken's word for it, he came in with professionals after that to try and give a perspective on that. Again, we're dealing with a situation that, and it's the second or third time I've said this, there is nothing concrete out there. There was no applicant, there was no site plan. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the regs, as you have brought up and you've recognized. But again, their building site, their ghost building on that map and things like this was to, I think, give a more concrete idea of what the potential could be and what that would lead to, again, with Mr. Motley and the other experts being able to speak to that. So that was one thing. But then again, the issue, we'll take up more with the issue that you have regarding the notice and such, especially per Mike's response to that. And I'd be curious to maybe find out some more correspondence from you where you felt we failed in warning this meeting appropriately, or the hearing appropriately, considering the people that were here, many of the people that were here last time were here for that meeting as part of the public from Ashford. But thank you again for your input. We appreciate it. Ms. Kaufman, I see your hand up. Please go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank Christine and Loretta and Mike. I don't know all of you. I know Mike, but there was a lot of points made that make a lot of sense, and that we also, we own 2 properties in Ashford. We own on Lake Chafee, but we also own a farm with considerable acreage right on 89, and it's an 1812 antique farmhouse with a barn and animals, horses, dogs, and the Mount Hope River runs right through it. When we bought the property, the previous owner had lived there a very short time, and what we found out after the fact is that what drove her out of the property was that she had one of her dogs get hit on the 89 because of the excessive speeds and traffic that were going on there. And since my mother actually lives there and now on the farm, she's had multiple animals killed on the road because of the excessive speeds, and there's nothing that she can do about it because it is a highway. They can't put in speed bumps or anything like that. She's right on the highway. She is constantly aware of the fact that the noise is causing issues, and especially with, hearing, and she feels like that's affecting her. It's the reason why we've purchased these properties was to be in the quiet corner, to enjoy the, rural lifestyle. And this would absolutely drive us out of this town. It would make it not pleasant to be there. Right now, we already have the noise pollution from the highway, and there's a lot of open water, and that actually carries sound very well. And so I would anticipate having, an increase in the noise pollution in the area, which would make it not very pleasant for anyone to go. It's a recreational area at the lake. So I absolutely see there's no way that this is going to increase anyone's property values. If anything, it's going to drive people out of that town. And most of the people I know that are there like the character of the town. And I feel like this would absolutely ruin that. And so I implore the committee to look and listen to these, the comments that have been made on the table. And please don't open the door to this type of development in this town, because you can't close the door after it's been opened. It'll make future generations, it will be very sad to see the type of things that could happen in this town if this development moves in. So I really thank you for listening to all of us express our concerns, and we really appreciate you're on our, you speak for us, and so we put our trust in you that you will hear us and discern this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your input. We really appreciate it. Anyone else looking to speak at this point? Paul Varga.
Hi, Paul Varga. I actually live over on Zychik Road, and I'm not, as most of the commission knows, because I'm here a lot, I'm not a fan of regulation. I'm not a fan of having all this stuff written down. And I personally feel, excuse me, regulation hinders success. However, there are some things that I think as a town we need to have to keep things from getting out of hand. I actually am not opposed to changing some of the text because I think we need to look at developing that area. We need the tax revenue. As nice as it is, and I own a very large parcel of land, and I'm a farmer. So I do enjoy the quiet and the darkness, but at the same time, I also like to be able to stay here when I retire. And if we keep going in the direction we're going, that's not going to happen. So we need to, as a town, admit that we need to do something to bring in some business. And the I-84 corridor is the absolute perfect place to do it. Having said that, my concern with this is some of the changes in Mr. Williams addressed the 45-foot thing. I know the commission addressed the fire department about that. I'm not a fan of that. I think that going through the special permit process for an extended size building is probably better for the town, because then the PZC can address the issue of how we're going to get fire suppression and fire apparatus. And quite frankly, we have a manpower issue already. I can't speak for the fire department, but I can speak as a volunteer. We already have a manpower issue. How are you going to get the people there? And the fire suppression comment that the gentleman made in the presentation, putting up a couple of water tanks doesn't solve the problem. So those are my concerns with the changing of the text. But I think that I would like to see something go in there sooner rather than later. And you're not going to stop the trucks from driving on 89 or 190. The truck drivers are going to drive where they want to. But most of them have no desire to drive down a little 2-lane back road. They want to get back on the highway and go to work because they all want to go home and see their wife and kids too. That's what they do for a living. So I understand the concerns. I think the water issues will be addressed by the appropriate authorities. The light issues can be addressed through regulations. I just think it needs to move forward, but there are some safety concerns that also need to be addressed. And traffic is one of them. I'm not sure what you can do regulation-wise about that, but that's just my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else looking to speak? Tony Peticchio.
Muted. Hi, I'm Tony Peticchio. I live on Waterfall Road. I live about a little less than 3 miles from 84. And I will echo what I think Ms. Kaufman said, that in the winter, many times we can hear the traffic on the highway. So noise is potentially an issue, as is 24-hour lighting an issue. But what I wanted to talk about is, and I know my name's come up several times. I was on the commission at the time we adopted the IID zone, and we spent a lot of time and care in it. I recognize that there has been no development there, and I don't think it's inappropriate for the commission, as part of the process we're going through right now and revisiting all the regs, is taking a look at the zone again in light of our goals and objectives. This is like a gateway to the town in light of, consistent with the POCD. I don't think approaching this with an applicant changing what is our gateway zone, that's not the way to do it. We ought to be doing it in a full process. You know, I'm looking at the POCD on page 35 and the primary objective 1 for this zone. I know the applicant has referred to some of the objective 2 criteria, and Christine and Loretta have referred to some of the objective 3 criteria, which go to protecting our sensitive areas. But objective 1 acknowledge, and this came after this reg was in place, and I think a recognition that we had to think about it, was that we needed to perform a strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats assessment and develop our own plan of development for this SPA. I think that if we're going to consider changes to this zone, it has to come from us, not from a particular developer or particular applicant, because we know what we want Ashford to be. We know we need to bring in some business, but we need to be the ones driving this. This is our town. This is our one gateway exit into the town from the interstate. It impacts residential development all the way down 89. I keep hearing talk about potential expansion of this zone farther south of the highway on 89. That starts getting very close to residential areas. And I do believe once you put a warehouse distribution use in, that becomes what this exit's going to be. It's going to be, that's what it's going to be. And we, at the time we did this reg, really did not see that as appropriate for the gateway to the town. I think we need to look at ways to attract business, but this is not the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else looking to speak? Looking to see if there's a raise your hand here. Mr. and Mrs. Coffin, would you like to share that chat piece that you sent?
Yeah,
I'll give you a couple more minutes. Go right ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that we've had some issues with water in our well running dry during the summer months. The last 4 years we've noticed a lot of droughts in the summer, and with my mother having horses and livestock, this has been really difficult. She's 71 and she's had to. It's very difficult for her to get water when her well runs dry, and we've done some research a little bit, and definitely usage around contributes to the level of the water table. And so if you start creating large water tanks, as you mentioned, that need to be rotated, as you mentioned, too, of the water in and out, you're going to put an incredible strain on the water table in that town, potentially, and increasing the number of people using water to use the bathroom, and increasing output into different types of sewage treatment on the property would also have some sort of impact as well. So there is just a little concern. This is an agricultural town. Water is critical to animals and crops, and to put something like this in there could really cause a strain on the whole town in that respect as well. My husband's also has served as a volunteer firefighter, and we also echo the concern that that the town could handle the manpower. We don't have a paid fire department. So I heard that there was an offer to donate a truck, but manpower wouldn't be addressed with any of what's been described. So.
All right, thank you. Thank you again. I do see Carrie, Carrie Olson, you raised your hand digitally. Go right ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure whether to say anything at all. I just want to support Mr. Panic's arguments about the procedural irregularities. I realize we're in a new day, but I do believe that the governor's executive orders would have required notice of this public hearing to be posted on the website, which it was not. And again, that's different and apart from posting an agenda. I think that Executive Order 7B would have required the actual posting of the public hearing as required under 87D to be on your website, and it would have given everybody notice. So everything I'm saying right now is without waiving my right to object. I support Mr. Panic's notion that we should not be addressing this tonight, that there should be a do-over. There were a lot of us that did not get proper notice, in my opinion. But I would also like to give a shout out to my colleagues, Attorney Kraken and Attorney Slater. And I appreciate that they will probably be giving you legal advice on that point. But having said that, I'm not going to repeat anything that you've heard tonight. I just, again, for the public record, I know the commission is very much aware of this. This text amendment affects the entire zone. It's not limited to this one parcel of land. And so, although on the one hand, they say there is no proposal for you, on the other hand, they provide you with maps and plans showing a proposed warehouse, distribution center, and give you the suggestion that it's going to be limited to this one parcel of land. But it's not. You know, it's like the other before me have said, it's, you know, opening the door. And I think it deserves a concerted effort. I think the Planning and Zoning Commission should put their planning hats on. And if, as the other people who have testified said that what's there isn't working to develop economically the town, then maybe the commission with their planning hat should sit around and talk about various text amendments that balance both the desire for rural living with the need to grow economic development. But again, I also echo, it should not be done through a piecemeal application for what we perceive to be a proposed warehouse without further discussion and consideration of the commission. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the input. Anyone else at this point?
Yeah, Jeff, this is Dick.
Yes.
I think it's important that we realize that anything that comes in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission is a special permit. So this is not given carte blanche to anything. If a warehouse wants to be built at exit 72, it is subject to a special permit. We can look at general guidelines, but those general guidelines are going to be subject to a special permit. This is not something that is given carte blanche to anything at exit 72. We want to find a way to promote development in this town. At least that's my opinion. But the same token, we don't want to give carte blanche to anyone that wants to do anything in the town. We recently passed revisions to the land use regulations, which included a special provision for application fees for large developments, which would apply to this development, which would allow the town to subject the developer to a 2% or $50,000 fee of what they were proposing for the town to promote looking at alternates of what would be done and not be done. In other words, we could look at the environmental impact, we could look at the traffic impact, and we could use this as a way to objectively evaluate what we may or may not approve as far as an application. So this is not a carte blanche for the developers to do something. This is simply opening up the potential for something to be done. You know, it's not, you know, one way or the other. We've had for as long as I've been in town and been involved in economic development, we've had this exit sitting there as something that has not generated anything. At some point in time, we need to think about what we might do as far as development for this area. You know, I would not give carte blanche to any of the folks that are here proposing things, but I would definitely give the potential for them to present what they might want to do for a special permit, subject to the conditions of a special permit. So my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Dick. We'll finish things up. Mr. Panic, I see you have your hand up. Please go right ahead.
With all due respect of the gentleman that just spoke, this is Mike Panic again, wearing my resident hat. With all due respect to the person that just spoke, who I believe is a commission member, who used the word carte blanche several times in his description of what's going on. Once you change the text regulations to let's just pick one of the items, to a 45-foot high building, that's part of what somebody else said is like opening the door. Then when somebody brings a development that's a 44-foot high thing, the special permit, the answer to the special permit would be it's in the regulations, so there's not a lot you can say against it. Once, if you did approve this for a 45-foot high building, that's the opening of the door to allow somebody to submit that, in 2 months when you change the text, if you change the text. And I realize you have to have a special permit, and that certainly would get into much deeper things about lot coverage and water runoff and stormwater and environmental and all of that stuff. But any change to the text amendment, to the text, would make that the law. You wouldn't be able to, in a special permit, say, you're bringing a 44-foot tall building. We don't want that as part of the special permit. And any applicant, this one or any other, is going to say, well, the regulations now say a 45-foot building is allowed. So why wouldn't you just leave the regulations the way that Mr. Patrico and a bunch of smarter people than me made back then of what the town of Ashford wanted, and make part of the special permit somebody bringing in and saying, hey, I know it's 35 feet, but we want to have a special permit. To me, is a variance. It's a variance which people get all of the time in commercial when you want to have more parking spaces or a little bigger building or a little taller. That's a variance or a quote unquote special permit. And why wouldn't that just be taken on a case by case basis? Why make it permanent? Because then you have no say as a town or as a board. If they bring a 44-foot tall building, it's in the regs now. So to me, I don't call it carte blanche. I just say you're putting in regulations that, people could ask for, variances or special permits at a later date for height, for drainage, for a lot of different things. So, I think that's a little bit of the difference of, carte blanche and, actually changing the regulation to something that you wouldn't be able to deny somebody later on because it's going to be part of your regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panic.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? Any other question? Mr. Sebo, Christine. You're on mute. There you go.
Okay, it's Dr. or Ms. Okay, the issue about water. So somebody mentioned, let's see, Carrie mentioned that this amendment doesn't affect just the parcel, but might affect the whole town. Further on, it might affect the whole area. For example, the watershed gives water to Willimantic on both sides of the highway. They count on us. Those other towns count on us who have the forests and the wetlands to have a clean source of water for them. We need to be good neighbors. We can't just consider this, Ashford, we can do whatever we want and not consider the rest of our neighborhood. My second question is, somebody said the exit hasn't generated anything in years. Well, things sometimes go slowly, but as I mentioned earlier, development is happening really fast. The highway is getting really crowded more and more every day. It used to be I could be on the highway near this exit and there was nobody there. Now there's pretty much not a time of day when there's nobody there. So, we're being encroached on, we're being discovered, whether we like it or not. And there will be someone who comes in. Now, if it's not to the liking of this owner, well, so be it. Maybe something smaller will happen and that will be just fine. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you very much. And I didn't mean to disrespect. I believe I said Ms. Acebo. If you heard me as Mrs. or anything, sorry about that. It was Ms.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm looking at her hands. I see nothing. Any questions of the commission to the presenter, the applicants, and his professional, the professionals that he brought in with him? Anything that you wish to bring up at this point from the commission members? Okay. Seeing as that we've gotten the input from the public, we've gotten further input from the applicant, I would look to close the hearing for the applicant for the amendment change, and we will take it into our regular meeting and have discussion and look to have action on this. Yes, Janet.
Oh, are we starting the discussion?
Oh, no, not yet.
Oh, all right.
I just want to thank everyone for their attendance and for their input. It's greatly appreciated. It makes the job of the commission, I want to say all that much easier, but it gives us direction, and we appreciate your input. We appreciate the applicants and the folks he brought in to help us get a better picture of what has potential, what could be proposed, how the land itself could be used. And again, so we will close the hearing at this point and move on to our regular meeting.
Mr.
Sorry.
Chairman, could I just request that the commission get an opinion from Attorney Slater on the notice issues?
We would bring that up. We'll bring that up during our meeting.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I need to go to my other computer and bring up my agenda here. All right. Okay, Valerie, how are you doing? You keeping up with everything?
Sort of.
Sort of, okay. Well, we do have a recording to help. All right, so we are moving back into the regular meeting, having closed the hearing for the text amendment to Article 4, Sections 3 and 4. And we will start with the discussion on the text amendment from the commission members. And again, this is the commission members. Those of you looking to still attend, thank you very much, but this is the commission meeting right now. Input, Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say that I think this request should be denied at this time, as we are being asked to change zoning without, as it has been pointed out, without the benefit of taking time for the planning. I think the public has brought up a lot of great questions, and the applicant has also brought up some questions and given us a lot of information and things to think about. I'm really concerned about the fire department and how well they can handle a big building, what kind of chemicals are going to be in there. Are there things that we should be excluding from being stored there because we can't handle it? I'm also concerned about the traffic. I don't think that's been adequately addressed, just saying that, yeah, it's a highway, and the impact on town roads. Also, the impact on the water, as has been mentioned. And Jean Pillow's excellent analysis also included some suggestions for rules and regulations that I think we should look at and maybe think about adopting in new regulations. And the zone, we might want to consider splitting the zone between what's north of 84 and what's south of 84, and not just regulating the whole zone the same way. So I think that it really makes sense for us to look at this regulation in a holistic way before we make any changes to it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I also probably should be reaching out, though I appreciate Mr. McCracken's request about Ken. Ken, I know you're on mute right now, and give you time to come off on mute. Mike, you didn't have an opportunity to send this to Ken at this point, did you?
I did very, very recently.
Excellent, very good. And Ken, I don't think you've had the opportunity to review the issue that was brought up about the warning of the meeting at this point.
Well, I'm getting close. Yes, it was very recent. It was right after I clicked into to join another agenda item. But I just want to make sure I understand the facts correctly. The issue that's being raised is that you've opted to go with published newspaper notice to start the hearing, which isn't required by the executive orders related to having virtual meetings. But because you did that, you didn't include a public published notice on your web page of the hearing. I mean, the agendas were on the hearing, the minutes, things like that are on the meeting, but there wasn't a formal legal notice on your web page notifying the public about the start of this hearing. Is that the argument that the folks that are saying that it's not been properly noticed are making?
Yes, that's that is the issue. We've kind of maintained our normal stance, our normal methodology of warning our hearings, because we've been able to do that as opposed to just going through. Again, being we've had feedback about, though this group is a bit different, we've had feedback about it not being adequate to be just on the website from time to time. So we stayed with our normal warning methodology.
Okay, so familiar with the executive orders. Attorney Olson certainly is. She was involved representing CCM and most of those, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and most of those orders. I've been involved, my colleague even more than me, Rich Roberts, in a lot of these executive orders. And the main executive order that kicks in this scenario is 7B, which authorizes towns to hold virtual meetings when they would otherwise, but for the executive order, have to have an in-person meeting. And that is really an FOI issue, is that there'd be a requirement to be in person to comply with Freedom of Information rules. And they're saying it's okay to do it this manner, and then it sets out the requirements for it. So the executive order that allows for this says that notice of the hearing should be published on your webpage. So that you didn't do, but you've done arguably more than what's required, because a lot of the executive orders suspend what would otherwise be those requirements. So I can't give you a definitive answer of how this would shake out, other than this. If they ever did appeal on the grounds that your notice was improper, the only relief that would ever happen with the court would send it back for you to do a do-over. So if the commission is, if there was a challenge on notice that was raised, your commission could do a do-over then. Sometimes these notice issues are threatened, but there isn't a real appeal based on them, because the real issue of notice is, were people notified? For time immemorial, a published newspaper notice was considered adequate notice to the public. So you've done that. Now, the legal question, which nobody can answer, I can't, Attorney Olson can't, is whether or not a person might be misled because the executive order allowing for these virtual meetings said there should be the notice of the hearing should be published on your webpage, that they were somehow misled and they weren't put on notice, even though the public is on what's called constructive notice when things are published in the newspaper. Basically, the whole community is assumed to be on notice when it's been published. So if the law says that the entire community is on notice because of the publication, I would lean slightly in favor of the fact that a court is going to say, on a public notice standpoint, that you've done the kind of notice that has always been recognized as been appropriate, and it's more likely than not that this would be sufficient. Or in other words, if you went ahead and approved it, it would not get invalidated for notice issues. But let me tell you, I'm not going to be banking on it, because this is entirely new ground. You've got issues where people are using underlying law versus what the executive order has. As you know, people are challenging whether the governor has even the authority to do a lot of the things he's done in the executive orders. So this is a complicated issue. I wish I could give you a black and white. I'm 100% sure that you go forward, you're squared away. I can't do that. What I can say is the only real risk you have is a court saying you have to do a do-over. And even then, if there was an appeal taken on that issue, you could always consider, it's like, all right, rather than fighting this appeal, arguably we'll waste the time to do it again. You had a lot of people online today, so it surprised me that there are people who didn't have notice, but the nature of a public notice challenge is the argument that there are people that aren't here because they didn't have adequate notice. That's what they would have to argue. And your position would be, in defending this, would be that it was sufficient that there was public. How could people say they didn't have notice when it went in a publication of general circulation? So I think you're likely to be on the right side. If you want to be super conservative, you can do a do-over. You could, decide that, because it's not perfectly clear, there might be some legitimacy to that argument. You could, hold another hearing, and you could go with, you've obviously, everyone who's got notice so far from the newspaper is listening to the hearing tonight. And so if you opted to, decide to publish it on the webpage, continue it, and have another hearing with it published on the webpage to stifle any argument that they didn't get notice in that mechanism, because it is a really technical argument. People are saying the argument is that they didn't know about it because it wasn't published on the newspaper, regardless of it being on the agendas and regardless of the newspaper. So if you wanted to be super conservative, you could do that. I think the likelihood is that you would prevail if there was an appeal on it, but it is all brand new ground here to, the interplay between underlying rules that have always been in place regarding notice and these executive orders that allow suspension of certain requirements. So I've talked a lot. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. I wish I could give you 100% definitive answer on that, but if any lawyer gave you a definitive answer and told you they knew the answer, you needed to fire the lawyer and get another one. Because this is the situation where it's all brand new and it's trying to weave together different concepts about notice, FOI, whether or not parties have had a reasonable opportunity to know about the hearing. So it's complicated is the final answer on it.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go with the 51% that you offered up. I mean, 2 out of the 3 scenarios show a do-over, so I think we're just going to move forward with the application as submitted and go forward with it based on your input on that. Again, a new area for all of us. And I think continuing the hearing doesn't deal with the initial issue of the group that's concerned is that it wasn't warned properly the first time. So continuing, I don't think solves that problem or that issue or that technicality, if you will. So, okay, so we will move forward. Thank you very much, Ken. And hang around. We know you need you for another item on here. So Janet, thank you for your input. Anyone else on the commission wish to offer up anything along the lines regarding the text amendment change?
Hey, Jeff, I had a couple of comments.
Yes, Jeff, go right ahead.
First of all, I'd like to echo Janet's comments about denying this application right now. I don't think we have enough information. Without regurgitating everything that she said, I agree with everything that she had to say. I just wanted to add a couple of things. The applicant talked about fire suppression and emergency response, and I don't think that they adequately address that. Yeah, they offered to purchase a fire truck that would reach a 45-foot height and be, take care of that need. But what they didn't address was the need to train people to use that truck, a facility to house that truck and keep that in storage. I see the potential for a lot of expense to the town that's not been considered by this applicant. And I really don't think that this is the time to approve something like this. I think the detriment to the town far outweighs any proposed benefit as far as taxes are concerned, and the tax value or property value increases, and our mill rate going down because of this potential property or tax advantage. Just being a skeptic, I really don't see that ever happening. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other commission members?
Yeah, Jeff, I had to log off a little bit because my internet went down.
Okay.
Thank you to Charter Spectrum. Um,
Well, you could always use the other company. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have a choice. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
we have no choice. I think the real issue here is that we have been in the process of revising the regulations. We hadn't got to this section, but in frankly, looking at it and thinking of the things that we would change or not change, some of the things that are being proposed would be considered as far as the general changes that the commission would look at, along with what we'd be doing for the commercial zone too. I'm a little bit concerned about making changes based upon a hypothetical case that's not real. But the same token, I think looking at some of the very basic things that are in that regulation, in specific the height. The height could be an item that we could look at. The other item that we could look at is the, and I would rather see our regulation deal with the percentage of coverage of the lot rather than specific size of the buildings, because I could not find any reference anywhere in any of the surrounding towns, going from Manchester, South Windsor, Killenly, Willington, and other towns where they talked about specific sizes of the buildings. I think if we were to revisit that, we would never put it in that context. But since we have in front of us a proposal to change something specific to what exists there, rather than revisit the entire regulations, I think the commission needs to spend some time, look this over, and come up with a well understood and well looked at condition of how we might change them. I don't think we can make that change sitting here in the public, hearing, but I think we need to have a lot more discussion of it as a commission.
Thank you, Richard. Further discussion on the commission. Any input? Okay, seeing as that there is no further discussion on this, is there anyone looking to make a motion on the refusal or the acceptance of this application? Janet?
Jeff?
I'm sorry, Jeff?
Yeah, I make a motion that we deny this request right now and revisit it after more discussion amongst the commission.
I'll second it.
I think we should close the public hearing.
We already closed the public hearing.
Yep. I'm sorry, I had to make an
That's
extra.
right, you were gone. No, we had closed the public hearing. We're in our full-fledged meeting here.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Just for your edification also, we had Ken discuss the issue regarding the warning of the meeting. And based on his input, we've decided to move forward with our activities and procedure.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a seconded motion to deny the current application. and with the caveat to revisit the IID zone and its regulations overall. Second motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'm going to ask for a identified vote on this. I'll start with Doug. Yay or nay, or abstention?
Yay.
Is that a yes?
That's a yes to deny. That's a to deny the applicant. The application, I should say. Alex?
Yes to deny.
Catherine Sampson? Okay. Richard?
Yes, that we revise the caveat to revisit this in the full committee.
Okay. Jerry? Mark? You're muted, Mark. Still muted. Shake your head one way or the other. That's a yay to deny, correct? Jeff?
Yay.
And Janet?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. So we will be denying the application at this time.
Jeff, I would like to state I appreciate the petitioners for putting forth much more detail of what they're proposing. Even though it's not a firm application, it's still better than what we had before.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It did. As I said, I believe it gave us some more concrete vision of what potential changes, potential effects might be. So, gentlemen, thank you. We will be visiting this section of the regs again, and I know a number of the people who gave input, especially some former members of planning and zoning. It's been about 5 or 6 years since those changes were made, and you know, the world changes fast, and we do need to look at those. So we will be looking at them. Thank you. Okay. Darn, this computer keeps popping off on me. Bear with me. I'm sorry, folks. Here we go. There we go. Okay. Review of the draft Lake District regulations. Mike, did you want to discuss that?
Sure. So I know it's
You're cutting out a little bit. There you go.
in trying to that we can build a discussion around.
Your mic's cutting in and out, Mike.
Hold on.
Nothing.
What is going on?
Oh, a little bit of you.
I think I'm having a bit of a bandwidth issue.
Nothing. No, it wasn't your papers rustling.
What about now?
Better. No, you went down again. I got nothing. Well, while Mike works on his technical difficulty here, could I get a motion to jump to new business to have Ken Slater address us so that we can have Ken address and move on his way, should he choose to? Do I get a motion?
So moved.
Seconded? Seconded. That was Janet and Richard. Valerie, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So, Ken, we're going to go to your item on the new business, an update on 154 Westford Hill Road and the stipulated agreement and where we are court-wise and such. Thank you.
Okay, I'll give you the big picture. You know, the sort of on the record one, your commission does have the right, if it wishes to, by 2/3, because it's a regular meeting, 2/3 vote, go into executive session if necessary. I think I can give you the big picture and perhaps get some sentiment from the commission. And if you think we need to talk outside of the regular meeting, either tonight or at a special meeting, you'd have to, if you did a special meeting, you'd have to notice it as an executive session. During a regular meeting, we could do that for the purpose of discussing litigation. So with that caveat, here's the story. Good news, bad news, and 2020 is horrible. The good news is the judgment that we had discussed some time ago with the deadlines, with the idea that that we would give them a window of time to get the work done. You have till September of 2021 to get everything done. And in advance of that would give, slight advance of that would give a final, essentially a grading plan that would show how things were going to be finished on the site. And the notion is that, you know, you'd have every opportunity to get the material removed. And if they were behind, you know, he'd have to deal with it the way, you know, that it was at that point in time, grade it out and be done, and trying to get it done sooner rather than stretch it out over time. I don't think you've had a lot of complaints because there's been, well, I'm jumping ahead. Again, the good news is that order in judgment was entered. So that is an order of the court as we speak. We have a status conference on Friday that was previously scheduled and it hasn't been marked off. So the court might have marked it off given the fact that it had entered judgment. It did not.
When you say marked off, what do you mean by marked off?
Sorry, that's a legal term. Marked off means canceled, not going forward at all. That was a term of art. I apologize.
It's okay.
And so it is still scheduled. Now the bad news of 2020 is, I think, one of the reasons you haven't gotten many complaints, because it was kind of a rip the Band-Aid off approach. It'd be better to have, you know, the neighbors complaining about the noise. Better to just get it done, have it with reasonable hours, get it done as quickly as possible, and get it behind you. The bad news is virtually nothing has happened this year during COVID. That the nature, according to Love's attorney, that because of COVID, the kind of material, while there's some construction that's moving, the kind of construction where that material, which is basically can be used only as a base in certain kinds of construction because it's not very valuable material, they've moved next to nothing off, which is why, I mean, there would have been a report about how much they've removed, and there's virtually no report to give you because they've not removed, if any, hardly any. So what they would like to do, and they can make a formal motion to open the judgment, because the judgment's been entered. We could oppose it, but you know, their suggestion to us is, in light of COVID, in light of the pandemic and the realities that we've all been dealing with is to just basically write 2020 off, and agree to just add one number to all the deadlines, so that it goes from the deadline of September of next year to the September of 2022. So that's what, you know, and we could talk, this is something you might be more than comfortable talking in perfect public with the neighbors and everyone listening to your discussion, or we could kick around the plus and minuses in executive session. If we want to go that approach, because, you know, the court might be sympathetic to what's going on and everybody's life is upside down in this 2020 world, we could just simply, you know, revise the judgment, revise the stipulation, get it re-signed, and the court would enter it as revised. Alternatively, he'll make the motion, we could oppose it and say a deal's a deal, and see how it shakes out. And I can't predict. I mean, I think people tend to be sympathetic to the pandemic. So if they make a reasonably credible argument as to why they really, that what was intended by the judgment couldn't be accomplished because they really had no way to go with the material because of it. That's where it is right now. So we have a judgment, and technically if the court doesn't doesn't do anything to change the judgment, then they've got to give you they've got to close it out in less than a year from now. But they know that it's going to be a big wad of material. It's still going to be there. There's no chance once things start opening up in the spring that they'll be able to get enough material out to not still have a mountain of that material on site. So that's the good and bad and ugly of it all.
Okay, I believe we've had a couple of complaints issued, and Mike, I think you've dealt with those directly. Mostly, if you've got any vocal there, any audio.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, I don't know what that was. Yeah, the only complaint I've gotten is from his name escapes me.
Mr. Griffiths, Brian Griffiths.
Yes, and I've explained to him that because we're in litigation, that I don't have the standard powers to go out and look at something and issue a notice of violation, and it's we're beyond that. He maintains they are very much operating. The last time I spoke with him, and that they haven't been as down and out, I guess. I don't know the specifics, but that's the only complaint that I've received.
If I could jump in, the problem, Mike is hamstrung a little bit because Mike Gardner was the one that attended the site visit with others. So I don't know that I know I could get permission of the applicant between now and Friday to get people on site to look with their own eyes to see whether they're not telling us the truth and that the material's almost all gone. And if the material is all gone, it would kind of be silly to be arguing we need another year to do more work. So I'm confident Attorney Penny's telling me the truth and the material, but I haven't seen it, not with my own eyes. So if you need to verify that there's still a big pile of material there, like similar to what we saw when we did the site visit, over a year ago, or around a year ago, by all means, I know I can get permission to do that, or at least I'm very confident in that.
I think his complaint is more related to processing and other things and just general noise, not so much vehicles. I don't know specifically because I'm not at all. I haven't been on site, so I don't know. And I just explained to him that the process was beyond me, and it's kind of where I left it with him.
And just to remind the commission, processing was permitted under the judgment. So the processing is permitted between Monday through Friday between 7:30 and 5, and then so processing can occur, and then removal. There are other hours for removal that's allowed on Saturdays. So processing is not allowed on Saturdays, but processing is permitted under the judgment. So the question that will be raised, either because we acknowledge what happened in 2020, and we add a number to all of the deadlines that are in the judgment and just get it revised, or he makes that makes a motion to do that and we oppose it and see what the judge has done, either one of those instances would involve processing happening on site. That the commission's got its mind wrapped around that has to happen. The operation can't occur without some on-site processing.
I guess I'd be a little bit more open to, changing the numbers and moving things 12 months over if in good faith they had provided us when any of the goals or anything of the stipulated judgment, such as the processing material that's been moved to date. I think they missed a date in that judgment, and the fact that we have to go chasing it down really starts to grate on me.
Well, in one, I'm not trying to defend them, but in one, the court hadn't entered the judgment by the time that first deadline had gone by. So I'm not excusing them entirely, but that's what the attorney's position was, is that we needed to kind of amend it from the get-go, because by the time the court entered the judgment, that deadline had passed. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't have, I get the frustration that they probably, regardless of the fact that the court hadn't entered judgment, they could have given you a report of what's going on. But as I understand, that report is, there's not much to report. And I'm sorry if I interrupted Commissioner Bellamy.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just, we never promised him that he could get all his material out, did we? I mean, we just gave him a deadline and said, you do it. So I'm not inclined to extend the deadline myself. I think he's had an awful lot of time and a lot of summers to work on this project.
I think what Ken has offered up, though, is there's two routes on this. One is, Attorney Penny, his attorney, will seek the court a relief based on COVID-19 2020, and the fact that they weren't able to move the material because of that. And again, Ken's trying to look at how the courts are looking at these types of decisions and who they side with when it comes to this. Everyone is very sympathetic when it comes to that.
I understand that.
And if we do we go through a lot of efforts on that and try and play hardball there, or do we feel that the judge is going to feel that way anyways, give them the benefit of the doubt and judge to move it back anyways? The additional year, 12 months, whatever it would be.
Jeff, this is Dick. They have found every possible way to wiggle out of this thing. We had a position. We should stick to it. I don't see any reason to change that. There is in town unbelievable amount of construction going on. So there's plenty of places to bring, fill to construction sites. So I don't see it as an impediment to him being able to fulfill the obligation that we had asked him to fulfill. We should stick with what we have. And if he doesn't, we should take the appropriate reactions.
This is Alex. I'd like to see a bill of lading, what they've hauled out of there. And I wouldn't mind doing another site walk, because they said if they weren't hauling out, they were going to do a lot of processing and be able to haul anything out when
the time came. Right, exactly.
When it came. So it would be nice to see how much they process and how much is sitting there waiting. And a bill of lading is I'm sure that they have that right there. They can get that, give it to us right tomorrow if we want, because someone's paying for that to be hauled out of there, and they got to have a record.
Well, let's say for the sake of argument that the bill of lading shows an extraordinarily low amount that's removed, almost none. I'm just for the purpose of discussion.
Yep.
Where does that put you in terms of your position on that? Somebody goes out and looks, and yep, sure enough. And I don't think they were going to bring the equipment on and process it when they didn't have a place to put it. So the two things came together. So if they haven't processed anything because they haven't any place to go with it, although this particularly is tied to one particular, contractor that was going to do this work. So there might, I'm not tied enough into construction to know why, if other construction's going on, why this material couldn't move there. Whether it's just the fact that this particular contract is having a tough time in 2020 or not. But that is something I want to raise. What if you do an inspection and we get a bill of lading that bears out what Attorney Penny says, which is virtually no material has been moved. I'm happy to take the position that, they've had enough time. He needs to find another contractor to get rid of this material. Their argument is that it's useless material and they're not making any money on it. So it's just trying to find a place where catch as catch can, where it can go. I don't know if that's true or if it's not, but certainly if it was that valuable and there were opportunities to get it out of there, people who are in business would do it. So where do we lie if it turns out that the bill of lading shows very little has moved and this site looks similar to what we looked at, a year ago?
I'm getting a little concerned. We're getting into strategy, legal strategy here. Should we be moving into executive session or moving into a special session under executive session, a special meeting? There's no rush time frame on this, correct, right now for us for a response or anything?
No, other than that, I will, we'll have but for having a consensus on the part of the commission. If the commission had consensus, I could share that with the court on Friday. And we're in a situation where what I recommend, based on what we've talked about so far, is that I ask for that additional detail, that if someone's willing to go do a site visit to confirm where the conditions are on the site right now, that on Friday, I'll raise that with Attorney Penny before if I can, but at worst case scenario, I'll raise it with him during the conference, and then the court would hold another status conference after we've had an opportunity to regroup with that additional information. And I get a flavor of what the judge says. If the judge looks at me and says, come on, you got to be kidding me. You're going to be wasting your time challenges. I'm going to amend that judgment. I'll tell you. And if the judge, wags his finger at them saying, come on, are you kidding me that you've had plenty of time? I'll share that with you. So I will have had a session with the judge on Friday to get a little bit of possibly, some judges are very good poker players, but there's a chance that I'll get a sense of where the judge is on that one. So we'll be in an information gathering mode, and then we'll have an opportunity. When's your next you want to do just have an executive session in the next regular meeting as opposed to taking another time, or would you want to do a special meeting to talk about this?
Mike, can we go into executive session now? Is that something that I forget what they call that in Zoom?
Yep.
When
If you wanted to do it now, I could do it. Yeah. Our next, Ken, and to answer your question, I think we're January 11th is the next regular meeting on our calendar.
I mean, nothing's happening on that site between now and January 11th.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So we'll do an executive session for January 11th then.
That's my recommendation. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All right.
And who would, if I could, if we were to do a site visit, who would I just contact Mike to arrange for a commissioner to attend with him?
I'll be there. I'm available. Alex is available.
All right, then I'll let you both know, and I know I'll have the green light to get you on the site at your convenience at a reasonable time and place. So.
Think we'll be able to see it with a foot of snow on it?
Yeah, Jeff,
You want to go tomorrow?
Let me know and I'll go along too.
Tomorrow or Wednesday, I'm good also, if we want to beat the snow.
Mike's not smiling. Maybe that schedule's not as good.
I could make tomorrow work.
All right. I'll call to Attorney Penny first thing in the morning and see if we can get you on there before the snow hits.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, Richard, you were saying?
I'm available too if you want.
It's a tough hike.
I can manage it. I mean,
Okay. All right, very good. That leaves us three. It doesn't make it a meeting, so that's fine. We can go with 3 members. That's fine.
I've actually driven by a couple times in the past couple months, and it just seems like it's the same thing all over again.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at it. Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Jeff.
I just want to reemphasize that I've recused myself from any of these discussions.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so now, Ken, thank you very much for the input, and you'll be getting back to Mike and letting us know what's up there.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Okay, take care. Thank you. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now we can jump back to Mike, who is, you can hear him for the draft of the district regulations, Lake District regulations. Thank you, Mike.
So the point of putting this together, and there's a little bit of an introductory memo, was just to give us a foundation to start thinking about this discussion. I'm not at all suggesting this is the be all end all and that we should schedule the hearing and move forward. But I reviewed a number of towns that have Lake District regulations and sort of what the goals of those regulations are, and put together something that I think is a good starting point for Ashford. One of the things that I think is important to point out in the memo is that, we're talking about well over 100 parcels, and that particularly for Ashford Lake, medium lot size is 0.4 acres, and for Lake Chaffee, it's about 0.24. So obviously now that we're dealing with 2 acre zoning, essentially 90,000 square foot, these properties are significantly undersized. The other thing that's included in the link to the meeting materials is I went into the land records and I pulled the original subdivision maps. They're called Lake District overall maps. And what you'll see from that are the originally approved subdivisions for both lakes. And the point of showing you that is so you can start to get an idea of how big these lots are or aren't. And in many cases, they're 40 to 50 feet wide. So based on the current setbacks that we have, it's just that it just does not work. And so I wanted to create a starting point of how the commission could start to think about treating this area. I think that, my point was just to put it in front of you, to start having you look at it and think about it. And, we'll continue to discuss it. Maybe if you want to, at the next meeting, you can come back with comments. And then when we think we have something that we're comfortable with, we would then want to engage those properties, those areas of town for discussion there. And I can get into specific question and answer if you have something that you see that you're wondering about, if you want.
This is Dick Williams. Before moving to Ashford in the late 90s, I lived in Coventry, and Coventry Lake had a real issue similar to what we're dealing with in our lake districts. And it ended up in putting in sewer systems for the entire lake district, which raised the tax rate for the town by 3 mill rates. It's something that we need to think about because it has a significant fiscal impact on the town. So, anything we can do that eliminates that as a possibility is important.
And yes, so I did look at a number of towns have regulations related to impervious coverage, drainage, stormwater, all of those things. We can absolutely move in that direction where we start to take a much closer look at what people are doing to develop their properties. Are they adding driveways and sheds and decks and all these things that are removing areas on their property that stormwater, rain, or whatever can infiltrate back into the ground and the water table. The only thing that we need to keep in mind is that is going to really change the approval process for property owners when they get try to get permits for decks or sheds or garages, because they're going to have to engage professional, engineers to run those calcs. And that's not something they're doing now. So if you want to go in that direction, I have examples and I can include that. But I didn't do that off the bat because I wasn't sure what the commission's thoughts were. But yes, water quality is something that a lot of other towns in Connecticut do deal with in these types of regs.
I appreciate your work on this, Mike. Thank you very much for the memo and such.
Yeah, no problem. And I guess probably the only other thing that's worth mentioning is this will apply to existing lots. If somebody wanted to come into a subdivision, they're not going to now use these standards to chop up a parcel into, really, really small pieces. So it's based
Right, this is
on,
only applicable to the lake locations.
it says all parcels lawfully existing within the Lake District as the effective date of the regulations. But the idea would be if somebody wanted to create new lots, the new lots would have to meet those other standards. So I think if you want to review them and ask, let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I can compile all those questions or comments and then kind of give you an update at the next meeting.
Yeah, let's put that onto the old business for the next meeting to follow up on.
Yeah, Mike, the thing that is a former resident of Coventry, what people did in Coventry is they took the the lot print of a property and they redeveloped it going up 2-3 stories high on the same footprint. And they were able to, grandfather that lot. I don't know if we have those kinds of revisions in ours, but it ended up opening up the floodgate of having the entire town of Coventry putting in septic municipal sewage for the entire Lake Coventry area. And that would be a big expense for the town of Ashford. So we need to think about not doing that same thing for Ashford.
So that gets to the building coverage and basically the ratio, like a floor area ratio, and this idea that the expansion of a structure that's currently a 2-bedroom ranch, or something, and now they want to go up and they want to add 3 or 4 more bedrooms and triple their septic discharge, is the idea that you are referencing. And so we could tailor some building coverage or floor area ratio. I haven't thought about exactly what makes the most sense, but we could write something in there that would not allow someone to just go from a little 2-bedroom to a 9-bedroom, 2.5 story building on the same lot, because really the septic is where you get into worrying about the water quality. Lake Pocatapog in East Hampton has a huge issue with that because as septic systems fail, it leaches into the water, and that's why you hear it closes every summer. So
would that type of expansion though, wouldn't Eastern Highlands be the authority on that?
Yeah. So they would have to demonstrate that they had the capacity on the property to support the size system they needed. And I don't know how all the lots and the properties are set up now. But I know, my family, we have a house on a lake in another state, and it's got 6 very small bedrooms. And 2 of those bedrooms could easily make 1. So we could double the size of the house, but not officially increase the number of bedrooms. But you would increase the number of people that it could hold. So there's definitely something worth exploring there a little bit, so that people have the right to expand and make their properties more usable as they make these investments, but not wanting to go from 900 square foot houses to 3,900 square foot houses or something. So let me see if I can get into that a little bit more.
So I have a question. Some people, I'm one of them, have more than 1 lot. So I have 3 lots. I don't know if I'm subdivided or not, probably not, but
So what I am finding, because frankly, a lot of these things are coming up. I don't know if there's properties for sale or what, but what may have happened is the house that you purchased when it was built, I don't know if you built it, the original owners or whoever purchased 3 of the original subdivision lots.
right.
But what I have seen in my research into the deeds is that even though the original property consisted of 3 parcels, generally speaking, throughout the history of them being transferred owner to owner, they're combined. So it's one, you're now sitting on one large piece, which was 3 parcels. But a lot of properties, I'm seeing that. I also, you'll see, property A and B bought a lot and that was in the middle of them and split it, and they've each taken half. That seems to have happened a lot as well.
So, well, my question is, if say my 3 lots are subdivided, so I actually have 3 lots, and they're 60 feet wide, would these regs prohibit me from selling one of those and somebody building a house on it?
So I'm going to try to make the answer as uncomplicated as possible. If you have 3 lots and your house and you're using those 3 lots, and the property lines are, in either running through them or whatever, then you obviously wouldn't be able to sell off those pieces because that would create issues with the house projecting into other parcels.
Hmm.
There's something called merger, which is a legal premise which says if you have multiple non-conforming lots and you are using them as one, that they are effectively merged and are one. That's complicated, but I wouldn't say that you could be completely prohibited if you had 3 lots and let's say your house, your driveway, your yard, everything was all on 2, and then you had one that was freestanding and alone that was not encumbered by driveway or structures or anything. If that was a legal building lot and had not been combined with another lot since it was subdivided originally in the 50s, then yes, I think you could sell it independently. The caveat being someone would have to be able to build a house on a 60-foot lot and have septic and well and all of those things, which is probably nearly impossible at this point, given the separating distances.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mike? Okay, please take the time to review the memo regarding the lake properties and give Mike your feedback as to trying to give him some direction and again, any type of feedback that will be helpful for what he's developing here. Okay. Let's see. Whoops.
Oh, I'm sorry. What kind of time frame do you think we have before doing a public hearing on this? Or are we going to?
From my perspective, you can do this as quickly or as slowly as you want. The reason why I've been working on it is because all but one of the variance applications that the ZBA has considered since I've been in Ashford have been related to properties on the lake. And, it's tricky when you start dealing with the ZBA and hardship and granting variances. And frankly, the regulations requiring what they require now are totally above and beyond what anybody in that area can ever meet. So rather than issue variances as the ZBA has to give these folks a pass at the regs, which is essentially sidestepping the commission's authority, right? You guys create regs and then the ZBA can issue a variance. I think it would behoove the commission to come up with something they like so that the ZBA can say, no, we've got these regs that were developed and this is what's more appropriate. Right now they say, I have 3,000 or 5,000 square foot lot and the town wants me to have 90,000. And they say, yeah, that's unreasonable. You'll never meet it. But there's no timeline on our end. You can do this however you're comfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I was buying eggs from a little place called Circle K egg farm. And then I actually was on Circle Drive. I drove up there and saw where they were. And my gosh, there was unbelievable chickens and turkeys and goats and everything on like a third of an acre plot. That's not something we would want to see in the lake zone. So I think putting forth regulations of what can and cannot be in the lake zones is important. And I think we should do it.
Yeah, I can also add some additional language regarding animal units.
The other thing too is, and I see that Mike Panic is still joining us with that, getting the Lake Association commissioners groups together. Maybe not so much at the end of the process, but earlier on in the process to get some of their input, I think would be helpful and effective and be worthwhile, so that the what we make in our bubble isn't there's a buy-in from everyone. I want everyone to be approving and comfortable with what we've put together. So again, trying to get them on earlier in the process, I think as early in the process as possible, when we have something to show, I think is a good thing to do.
Yeah, so once we get that, I will absolutely make sure that, you know, once we have something that we're comfortable with, at least having a draft for comment, we'll absolutely try to make sure that we get all that taken care of so that they can review it. If it doesn't work for them, it's a waste of time for us.
Right, absolutely. And again, you know, their buy-in is important in that even with a draft or whatever, you know, if we can get input, if we have a question on something, if we can get input, maybe we can get a member of each of the lake commissions or something to meet with you, sit in with you, and you can get, you know, if you have two directions to go and get a report or a request from one of them as to which they would be more comfortable with or which they feel is a better way to go, I just think would be helpful in the beginning of the process as opposed to the end of the process.
Sure.
Jeff, one of the frustrations we've had when we were doing the POCD is the lack of participation of the lake districts. We had very little participation from Chafee or Ashford Lake. So we need to proactively reach out to them so
Absolutely.
they can have their 2 cents worth.
Oh yeah, we want them up front as opposed to, you know, anything forced upon anyone or anything that, you know, was what the hell were you guys thinking type of thing. You know, we want to be sure that everyone's on board. So
I'm not sure if Carrie Olson is still on board with us tonight.
I don't think she is. No.
She owns property on Ashford Lake Chafee, and she was involved in the association, and she's also a land use attorney. I would reach out to her in particular to get 2 cents worth.
So we'll reach out to the commissions of each group and see who they would recommend and offer up. And that would be, you know, a suggestion we can put out there. Obviously, Mike's already nodding his head, so that's fine. Okay. This thing keeps popping away on me. Next agenda piece. What's next on the agenda?
Got
Westford Hill.
the meeting schedule.
Meeting schedule. Yes. So we need to vote on the meeting schedule and to get that approved. If you've had an opportunity, I've checked through it. There's only the one date that corresponds with a holiday, which is in October. Everything else looked like it was a proper date. Any discussion on that?
Move to approve it.
Richard moves to approve it. Second is Alex seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. And
All right, next we have the codification comments.
yes, thank you. Michael, you have, that's a nice piece that you put out there.
Thanks. So yeah, quickly, as you know, town got a grant, codify all of our ordinances and regulations. That was why we had the fire drill to get our zoning regs done earlier. the step after us submitting those to them on time was that they go through an editorial and legal analysis, which is where they compare everything that we've submitted to all of the other things that we have in our ordinances, as well as making sure we're using the same words to describe the same things, that our organization is not off, that we don't have things that are missing, or we don't reference things that actually don't exist. So the town got, I think I told you, we got a document back for all of what was codified. That was hundreds and hundreds of pages. Town clerk and I have been going through all of that, and I've been reviewing and trying to pull it all out. And I've isolated in this document the ones that really represent in my mind some type of a bona fide decision, or that has something that has real meat on it. So we don't have to decide this tonight again, but what I've done is I've pulled each one of those out. You will see the section, the reference, and then their comment. And then what I've tried to do in red is list to you my suggested option if it was not clear. Some of it is duplication of terms, or that we missed something, or that the sentence wasn't completed. So they've made those suggested changes. But there are a few that are specifically like requiring revision. So this is not a commission, necessarily commission action per se, that we need to, go through complete formally. I'm not sure how you want to handle it. But we probably want to have this wrapped by January. So you can review it and send me comments, or we can discuss it at the next meeting and just go through each one. If you think that's easier.
I am of a mind to just, if we can have everyone review this is at the 10 pages that effectively are in our realm, so to speak.
Everything else was just grammatical, you didn't use the right tense or whatever, but these were the 10 sort of substantial or changes.
Okay, I would ask everyone to review these and give Michael a yay or a nay, or give your input to the changing on that. And then Michael, come January, what potentially you could bring back to us is simply the ones that had either additional comment or there was some type of non-agreement from the group on that.
Okay. So I'll report on non-consensus items.
Yeah, Jeff, I looked over every one of them. With the exception of the home business and rural business, those were in conflict. And frankly, when I was making the changes, I had just kind of pasted everything from one to the other. And frankly, they are in conflict. I'll take the action to change those to make them in compliance. The real issue is that a home business does not require a special permit or, from, the P&Z, whereas a home business does require. So having some of the same things repeated in both of them is in conflict. Shouldn't be there. And when I did the cut and paste from one to the other, I should have looked at it closer. I'll make a point of changing those and submitting those for changes to the commission.
So Dick, if you want to send those to me, they're going to create the codification process. They will create, it's going to be like an online system and then a new document. So if you send that to me, I will send it to them as a specific revision versus adjusting the Word document, because they're not working with the Word document.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
I do that this coming week.
Okay.
I think the key thing that we need to do as a commission is that there's certain things that people can do in their home as a home business without requiring special permission from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then there are other things that are much larger in nature that require special permissions, and those require, special permits. And that's the thing we should show as, special permits for those. For instance, if Chuck Funk wants to make a cabinet in his basement, he can do it. But if he wants to build a building that he's going to do cabinetry, he needs to get a special permit. So those are the kinds of things that we need to clarify.
Yeah, again, anything that, and this is a poor definition, but anything that changes the depth and breadth and width of the home business itself, that it expands beyond its boundaries, that it causes traffic, that it causes, anything that has an effect on the neighborhood or the nature of the area, obviously is of our concern. Not so much, as you said, a home business kept internally that should not require our type of regulations affecting it.
And I should point out that the only thing we can really do here is make clarifications where there were errors. We can't make any changes of any kind to the substance of the text because that would
Right.
require a text amendment. So
Right.
for the purposes of the recording and anybody who's listening, if it's not included now, it won't be. And if it's included, we're not going to take it out without a public hearing. So just for the record.
Yep, thanks. Okay, so again, get your comments to Mike. Please look through it. Get your comments to Mike if you feel strongly about anything. And please make it a positive fill also. Let him know that you have looked at it and that you're good with it, okay? Zoning officer report, Michael, anything?
Most of
You
what I've been
haven't already
working
reported
on, most of what I've been working on, we've gone through. I will perhaps have some enforcement updates next meeting, but nothing as of yet.
Okay. All right, long meeting. Thank you for everyone's attention. I really appreciate it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jeff?
Oops, Jeff, yes.
Before we move to adjourn, I just had a phone call from Jerry Dufresne that he's been trying to respond and comment on certain things, but for whatever reason hasn't been able to get through. So
Okay.
however you want to handle that, just wanted to pass that along.
So he's been listening in. He just has not been able to vocalize his input.
Correct.
Okay. Did he say anything about the vote for the amendment, the hearing?
He did not. He had some comments about the Lake Association discussion.
His mic is open now.
Yeah, for whatever reason, he has not been able to respond.
Oh.
Yeah, it was muted before because I got his email and I went to go check to see, and then I noticed that he wasn't muted, but I see he's participating via phone.
Okay. I just wanted to pass that along, that he called me and asked me to reach out to you guys.
Okay, I'll probably talk to him so I can give some feedback to Valerie too, or we can make some changes to the minutes for when he was available, when he wasn't available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So Janet moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jeff Schillinger. All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Hi.
Hey, before we
Thanks.
adjourn,
Yes,
everyone, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
yes.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays to all.
Happy. And thank you, Jeff, for leading us.
Oh, it's a pleasure just walking in front of you. That's all.